Mark, thank you very much for joining us today.
Dan, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Hospitality Action is one of the charity partners of NoVacancy London. We're going to talk about the challenges that are facing hospitality and have faced hospitality over the last few years, and also the great work that Hospitality Action are doing. Before we do that, I'm always interested to know the individual in front of me, how they sort of entered the role they're currently doing. I know you've been CEO of Hospitality Action for coming up to 8 years, I think.
Yeah, around about. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So just briefly tell us about your journey, how you took upon the role of being the CEO of the charity, please.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Dan. And thanks for your support, by the way, through NoVacancy. We're absolutely delighted to be working with you. So yeah, very briefly, I was a travel writer through my 20s. So I wrote guidebooks, rough guides to Vietnam and Malaysia and Singapore. So that was me for my 20s. And then when I got to the age of 30, I thought it was probably time to put the backpack away and settle down. So I got a job with a trade magazine called Computer Weekly, and then moved to the Caterer magazine back in about 2003. So I was at the Caterer for about 14 years, firstly as editor and then subsequently as publisher. And while I was there, I was a trustee of the charity for about 10 or 11 years. So I've been close to Hospitality Action for going on 20 years now. I've always been very impressed by its work and what it does to support hospitality people. So did what I could while I was at the Caterer to support the charity, and then was delighted to get the chance to move across as chief executive in early 2018.
Sure, thank you. So we're going to dive into the industry challenges. Some will be well documented, but I guess in general, Mark, you know, the hospitality industry has been through an extraordinary upheaval, I guess like a lot of industries since during and since the pandemic. A wide question this, but from your perspective, what have been the biggest ongoing challenges for the sector?
Yeah, I think there have been a few, really. I think the first was obviously March 2020 when the pandemic first hit, and that was a really existential crisis for the industry. Nobody could have believed, you and I and nobody else could have believed, that we couldn't go to our local pub or have a swim in the local hotel or sports centre or go to a hotel for an overnight stay. Suddenly all these pleasures were ripped away from us, and clearly that was a huge issue for hospitality, for the operators themselves, but then obviously the knock-on effect was upon the people who worked in hospitality, many of whom were working on 0 hours contracts or perhaps were between jobs and suddenly found that they weren't tethered to any organisation that could offer them furloughs. So at that awful period, we were working so hard. My team was just amazing, getting as many grants out the door as possible to help hospitality people in financial crisis. So I guess that was the first really big concern. Then, as we all know, the cost of living squeeze began a couple of years ago, which again hit the individual, but also the operators. So operators saw costs going up, and that in itself has a knock-on effect, because if you're a marginal business and then your costs rise, then you're going to struggle. And when businesses struggle, they lay people off. So again, we saw a huge uptick in people who were either laid off and struggling without work, or still in work but in work poverty, because the bills were rising at such a pace. So again, we were working really, really hard through that period to help people who just couldn't pay to put food on the table for their kids, couldn't pay the bills, and were getting into debt and arrears. So that was another really big moment for us. And then I think, recently we're seeing another really, really difficult time for the hospitality industry. Operators have been hit really hard by high inflation and high business rates. The national insurance hikes that we all know about that came into effect in April have been really, really problematic. The high minimum wage has also taken its toll. Now, in principle, everybody wants to pay a going wage and pay as much as possible. But if the minimum wage grows, if the minimum wage growing means that a business is no longer able to function, then clearly that's no good for anybody. So that's been an issue. There's been talk about the level of VAT for the last 5 years. We're at 20%, and it's punitive, and it means that it's really hard to run a successful and profitable business in hospitality. So again, we're now seeing the upshot of these difficult times for operators. And we've all seen the statistics out of UK hospitality about the numbers of jobs that are being lost and the numbers of businesses closing at the moment. But that takes its toll at a personal level. And again, we're seeing a real uptick in numbers of people getting in touch with us.
Thank you, because I know that on a podcast earlier in the year, I think in the Checking In podcast, you described 2024 as Hospitality Action's most challenging year yet. From what you've said, I'm sort of working on the assumption that's continued through to 2025. And when I mean your most challenging year, obviously the people that you help as well within that. Would that be correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We're 188 years old, so we have an amazing heritage, but we're continuing to see record months in terms of numbers of applications for support. So that tells you all you need to know, that we're seeing a deluge, a tsunami, call it what you will, of applications from people who really need help now. It's people who need help to pay the bills and stay in accommodation. It's people who have health issues, physical or mental, or all the other issues that can affect us at some time in our lives. But absolutely, this year is a really tough one. Once again, last year we paid out more money than we'd ever paid in the history of the charity, but it's never enough. There's always more people that need our help, and we have to focus on the people we do help and not the many people that we can't necessarily help.
Sure, because I guess what we typically see in the market and from press releases are numbers, right? 89,000 hospitality jobs were lost, as you referenced, according to UK Hospitality, between October 24 and August 25. But each individual there has got a personal story, right? And as you suggested, the impact is great and grave in a number of circumstances. You recently wrote about the ongoing staffing crisis. How do you see workforce pressures influencing mental health and well-being across the hospitality? How does that manifest itself in you and your team's day-to-day?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We did some mental health, some research into the mental well-being of the industry a few months ago. It's something we've been doing pretty much annually for the last 5 or 6 years. The people that responded, and there were many, told us that the top workplace challenge at the moment is under-resourcing and understaffing. So that issue has raised from 21% of people saying it was an issue to 57% this year. And I think that tells the real story. People, yes, businesses are struggling, and when you struggle, you sometimes sadly have to lay staff off. But then that has a knock-on effect for the people who are still there and still working, because you still have to run the business. So yes, cut shifts, cut jobs, but you still have to survive. That leaves fewer people doing more of the work, and that can become fatiguing and stressful. And I think there's also that issue that if people know that their business is not doing well, there's the mental stress of not knowing whether they're going to be the next person out the door or whether the business is going to close, and none of them will have jobs, they and their colleagues.
Sure. For those that who may not be familiar with the work of Hospitality Action, could you sort of outline the core area of the charity's work, please?
Yeah, absolutely. There are 3 legs to the stool. So the first is grant giving. So we're a grant giving organisation. We invite applications from anybody who's worked or works or has worked in the industry and finds themselves in difficulty or crisis. Typically, people get in touch with physical and mental ill health issues and issues around poverty, but we help people with dependency issues, relationship breakdown, domestic abuse, all the challenges that can affect us all in some time in our lives. So that's the bread and butter of what we do. We get applications in from people, and then our case managers speak to them to understand what their circumstances are, and then see how best we can help them. Sometimes that's an injection of cash if people literally can't pay the bills and they're at risk of eviction, or they can't put food on the table for their families. Sometimes we pay for tangible items like perhaps a washing machine for a family that has a child with a continence issue and doesn't want to be putting all of its money into laundrette machines. Or we can pay for people, pay for bespoke wheelchairs or stair lifts or home modifications, all of the things that people sometimes need when they have a life-changing diagnosis. So that's grant giving. Secondly, we have an employee assistance program, which is a paid-for service that we created about 12 years ago. So we felt that there was no such program in the market that spoke specifically to the idiosyncratic set of circumstances the hospitality people work to. So we created a hospitality bespoke employee assistance program. So really it's a means for operators to buy into a suite of benefits, counselling opportunities, and advice that helps their employees keep happy, healthy and productive. And then thirdly, we have a beautiful scheme called Golden Friends, which is a retiree outreach scheme. So we keep in touch with several thousand people who've retired from the hospitality industry, And we just make sure that they don't feel forgotten by the industry that they worked in for so long. It can be very tough if you finish on a Friday evening working in a busy, buzzy environment and then suddenly go into the next phase of your life. Mobility can become an issue. You might lose a partner. So you can suddenly go from working in a really buzzy environment to being home alone and having no contact with the outside world. So we keep in touch with our golden friends. We send them newsletters, birthday and Christmas cards. We help them with their winter fuel bills, and we just make sure that they don't feel forgotten by the industry that they served.
Thank you. Is it possible to share one or two examples, maybe recent or past, of the impact that Hospitality Action has had? I was lucky enough, we were talking before we went on air, to go to your recent or the recent De Vere's dinner. I know Hospitality Action were a beneficiary of, and you spoke very passionately about a specific individual that you helped there. So whether it's that particular example or another one, I think it'd be useful for the viewers to understand the impact that it makes, please.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. Well, yeah, I mean, I shall certainly start with the story that you mentioned, which you heard a month or two ago at the De Vere dinner. So there was a young woman called Tatiana, who used to work at Hawksmoor Spitalfields, who got in touch a couple of years ago, and she got in touch to ask if we could fund a low-level dishwasher. And we unpicked the wider context of her story, and we quickly understood that her need was far more profound than just a new low-level dishwasher. So Tatiana contracted malaria, went on holiday overseas. When she came back, she was hospitalized in London, then caught sepsis. She was put into an induced coma, and then unfortunately had both of her legs and both of her arms amputated. Just an absolutely terrible story. She put together, with Hawksmoor's help, and Hawksmoor were fabulous throughout in supporting her, she put together a crowdfunder to pay for really good state-of-the-art prosthetic limbs. It drew a lot of money, but still had a 20k shortfall. So we backfilled that shortfall and were able to buy fantastic legs for Tatiana. We have a video that we show at events, and it ends with Tatiana dancing with her dance instructor on her new legs in the Hawksmoor where she used to work. So that's a particularly enriching and nourishing intervention, which we're really proud of. And we're still in touch with Tatiana. She's an absolute force of nature, and I'm sure she's going to do amazing things in future. So we're really proud to have got her in a much better place. And then we have a million and one other interventions. I mentioned the fact that sometimes people need a washing machine because they otherwise are putting all of their cash into the laundrette. People sometimes are on really important medication but don't have a fridge, so we will buy them a fridge to make sure the medication is kept cool. We had a spike in lockdown and beyond of domestic abuse instances, unfortunately, and we're able to help people get away from domestic abuse flashpoints. We can take somebody away from a flashpoint, set them up in fresh accommodation, put curtains in the windows and make sure they've got the right white goods and give them a new start in life. So always really proud to help people who are in those circumstances. And then sadly, we often have to help people with issues around death and bereavement. So we have a steady stream of people getting in touch who say, I've just lost mum, I've just lost dad, I've just lost a partner or a child, and I can't pay the funeral bills, please can you help? And it's such a sad situation, but nobody should have those financial worries on top of bereavement. So we're always happy to help people in those situations.
Thank you for sharing those with us. Obviously, to do the things you do, you obviously rely on the generosity of the industry, and I guess potentially sometimes outside. And you've spoken recently about being amazed at the lengths supporters go in raising funds for the charity. Jumping out of planes, swimming the Channel, rowing the Atlantic, and so on. But beyond the money raised, what do these extraordinary feats mean to you and the team? How do they help shine a light on your work?
Yeah, I think the really important thing about HA is that we're here for everyone in hospitality. So we need everyone in hospitality to know that we exist. And the most important people are the people at the sharp end, the kitchen porters, the room attendants. So the people who aren't necessarily mid or high level managers who will be on bigger salaries. So we're always really happy when people do extraordinary things for us because it gives us a chance to promote our work. more broadly, and that's what we're all about. You know, we're here to help hospitality people, but if they don't know that we exist, they'll never come to us. So so the sorts of challenges that you mentioned help us to bang the drum and show that if captains of industry believe that we're a charity that's worth supporting, then hopefully other people will too. We've got some fantastic things going on at the moment. There's a hotelier called William Gibbs who's on the Clipper Around the World yacht race as we speak. He's somewhere, I think he's coming around the corner of Portugal towards southern Spain at the moment. And we have a young woman called Maya Gilbert who works in restaurants in the northwest, and she is unbelievably, but she's walking the entire English coastline for us, which is about 2,700 miles. She's done over 2,000 miles. She's somewhere, I think, on the Norfolk coast, walking away as we speak, and again raising money, but also putting a focus on what we do and challenging people to look into what HA is and does and support in their own ways.
Sure. We wish them the best of luck on those fantastic journeys. Can you just talk us through briefly any current new initiatives that you're particularly excited about that you feel is going to make a big impact over the coming months and years?
Yeah, we're never far from a fundraiser. Our next big fundraisers are our Winter Chef's Dinner, which takes place at the new Chancery Rosewood on Grosvenor Square, the old US Embassy, on the 27th of October. So we're really excited about that. We've almost sold out. So if anyone watching wants to get a table, please do grab one now before they all go. We've got a fantastic lineup of chefs. We've got Tom Kerridge, Daniel Clifford, Henry Harris, Sabrina Guida, some fantastic names cooking for us. So we're looking forward to that. And before then, we've got our annual Walk for Wellbeing Challenge, which is a 2-week challenge through the middle of October, where we challenge people in the industry to just prioritize for a while their mental health and their physical health by taking a break from the working day. It's so easy between shifts or in your lunch break just to go and sit down in the canteen and doom scroll and get yourself even more miserable as you read all of the bad news of the day. But actually, why not just take a break, go to the local park, have a half an hour walk, perhaps take a couple of colleagues with you and just clear your head and try and decompress. So that's the idea behind Walk for Wellbeing. There's obviously a sponsorship element as well. We ask people who participate to raise a bit of money from friends and family. And on the middle Sunday of Walk for Wellbeing, we have curated walks up and down the country. So we've got walks in Battersea Park in London, Bristol, Bath, Oxford, Liverpool, Manchester, Glasgow, you name it. So we'll have thousands of people out on that middle Sunday walking the walk and prioritising their own health, but also raising money for hospitality action.
Fantastic. I guess I can get all the information on your website, socials, and
Absolutely,
so on. Yeah. Just as a closing comment, I know, again, in a recent Q&A you spoke passionately about the charity's mission, the pride you take in leading it. Mark, on a personal level, what continues to inspire you in the role, and how has that motivation evolved since you first joined?
It's a great question. So many things and mostly so many people. I think all the people I've just mentioned and all the challenges that we just talked about are absolutely awe-inspiring. But I think I'd look inwardly at the team as well. The team has worked like you wouldn't believe since. They work hard at the best of times, but since March 2020, they've just really done an amazing job of raising funds, spending money, getting grants out the door, supporting people. And you know what? We get money out the door, so we help people financially, but also we're here as a more emotional support mechanism as well. We have a hashtag, We've Got You, and that's really important. You know, that speaks to the arm around the shoulder, which we offer hospitality. And we have an awful lot of people who keep in touch with us just because they get nourishment from speaking to us and knowing that we're there. So I think I'm inspired by my team who continue to smash it out the park in terms of getting money in and getting money out to the people who need it most.
Sure. Well, I've met a number of your team and I concur. They're very passionate and inspiring at the same time. Mark, thank you for sharing your insights and for the vital work you and your team are doing. We're very proud at NoVacancy London to have Hospitality Action as a charity partner. We look forward to seeing you and the team on the day. And I know people watching this will take a lot from the conversation. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks ever so much.